Hey, I will try to keep this introduction relatively short so we can get to Q&A. I just want to say thanks so much for being here today. I know talking about bankruptcy isn't exactly how most people want to spend their evening, but I promise that we're going to make this quick, easy, and painless for you, and who knows, maybe it'll even be a little bit inspiring. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Upsolve, we're a nonprofit technology company that helps low-income Americans file Chapter 7 bankruptcy for free without having to pay for a lawyer. You can think of us kind of like the TurboTax for bankruptcy. We built a technology that makes a complex legal process simple and accessible to everybody. And I'm especially excited to share that Upsolve has helped over 16,000 people increase their net worth by around $1 billion in total. That's real people, real stories getting fresh starts. And we do this 100% free. We don't require anybody to pay us anything at any point in time. And we do this powered by generous donations from foundations and donors. Before we dive in, I should mention that I'm not Claire Robinson. Claire, our Director of Bankruptcy, is under the weather today, so we're all sending her good thoughts for a quick recovery. Claire, if you're watching this from your couch with some tea, get well soon. I look forward to seeing you hopefully on a future webinar. For those who don't know me, I'm Ben Jackson. I'm going to be your host for today and the co-founder of the nonprofit Upsolve. And quick disclaimer, while I do have a law degree tucked away somewhere, actually I think it's literally tucked away right there, not too far away, I want to be upfront and let you know that I'm not a practicing attorney or a financial advisor. Everything I'm sharing today comes from my personal experience and the tools we've developed at Upsolve. For any specific advice about your situation, you'll want to connect with a qualified professional. So I want to start by sharing something really personal with you. 9 years ago, I was sitting at my kitchen table staring at $60,000 in credit card debts after my business went under. $60,000, 6-0. Way too much for me to have on the salary I was making, which was just $20,000 a year from driving Uber, Lyft, donating plasma, anything that I could do to scrape by. At some point, I was relying on food stamps because I couldn't afford to pay things beyond my credit cards. And I honestly felt like I was a failure and like I was carrying this massive secret. You know that feeling when you're like lying awake at night, wondering how you'll ever dig yourself out? That was me. But here's the thing. Bankruptcy became my pathway to a fresh start. It led me to law school and eventually to creating Upsolve because I realized that so many other people were sitting at their own kitchen tables feeling just as trapped as I once did. So I want to introduce you, if you aren't familiar already, to Upsolve. You can head over to upsolve.org. We have lots and lots of resources where you can learn about debt and rebuilding after bankruptcy or rebuilding your credit just in general. And we have a free screener where you can access on our homepage by clicking Get Free Debt Help, Begin, enter in some basic information about yourself, about your finances. We'll do this based on my situation back then. We'll say I have some monthly income. Say this here. We'll say I can afford to pay, $500 a month towards this debt, and my credit score is not over 700. And what this is going to do is it's going to run a calculation that will show you exactly how much it's going to cost you to pay off this debt based on what you told us you're paying each month. And it'll tell you how long it's going to take. Now, this is the situation, I want to zoom in on this, that I was in with my debt. That's $60,000 in debt because I was only paying that $500 a month, would compound over time, and I would pay $132,000, over 5 years. And honestly, I would never actually be able to pay it off because it would continue to increase over time. So I needed a debt relief option. Let's take a look at what options would be available. And here I see consolidating, not going to work because my credit is not good enough. Negotiating, I don't have cash in hand to offer to pay less than I owe, so I probably can't settle. Debt management is not going to work for me because, it would take me a really, really long time to pay this off with a debt management plan. So in my instance, bankruptcy is the option that would work for me. You can see here the filing fees. I can see the date I would be debt free. April, only going to take a few months, and how much I would save in total. If I have questions about this, I can ask Upsolve's friendly AI and say, can I keep my car? Which was what I was most worried about when I filed bankruptcy because I was an Uber and Lyft driver. And I'm going to get a friendly, empathetic answer that links out to relevant content on Upsolve's website that I can use to learn more about the process. So really, really useful. I wish this is something that I had when I filed bankruptcy because it would have saved me a lot of time and energy. Okay, so that's Upsolve. If you have not already started that process, definitely encourage you to look at it. And I want to talk about something that I know stresses a lot of people out in this process because it stressed me out, which is the paperwork. And don't worry about that. We're going to break it down into bite-sized pieces that actually make sense. So let's jump into that now with this article here. I'm going to pull this up on my screen. And while I'm doing this, a quick anecdote. So I remember when I was getting my forms ready to file bankruptcy, I had, like, it was completely ridiculous. I had basically like 4 different states' forms because I had lived in a couple different places. I had like 10 copies of each one of those. I had every financial document that I think had ever existed about me since the dawn of time, all sitting all over my apartment on every single flat surface. Honestly, like, I'm surprised that I didn't get evicted from my apartment by the fire marshal because it was ridiculous. Like, I definitely should not have had that much going on. It probably kept me from filing for like another 3-4 months past when I could have, because it was just overload. And with Upsolve, we created some information to make this much more simple for you. Our free tool will actually help you assemble all the paperwork that you need. So before you jump into that tool, though, it can be helpful to have all of your relevant documents together. So I would encourage you to take a look at this article here, the Upsolve Bankruptcy Document Checklist, for information about what you might need to have so you can get through our free tool even more quickly. Okay. The last thing when you're stressed about finances that you need to worry about is your documents. Upsolve makes it so that you don't have to. So let's talk about what happens after you file bankruptcy, or really what the process of bankruptcy looks like, and then what happens after, which is a common question that we get. And it was a thing that I was most worried about after the question of, like, will I lose my car with my bankruptcy? So the bankruptcy process, you get your forms in hand, you take them and all your supporting documents to the court, to the court clerk. You give them the forms. They say, hey, great, this packet looks awesome. It's from Upsolve. We know them. They stamp it. They may not say that, but hopefully they do. They stamp it, they submit it, and then you get a case number, and you get assigned a bankruptcy trustee for your case. Now, a bankruptcy trustee is somebody who is appointed by the court. They're usually like a former judge or a former bankruptcy lawyer, and their job is to take a look at your income, your assets, your expenses that you reported in your bankruptcy form and say, does it look like Ben is hiding anything? Does it look like he's telling the truth? And what does he have that he's reported here that maybe we could take and sell to repay at least some of his debt? Now, don't worry about that. I was very worried about this when I filed. I was like, oh no, I'm going to lose everything. Most Upsolve users are able to keep all of their possessions and assets during the bankruptcy process by using something called bankruptcy exemptions, which are things provided for in the law that cover your property, your essential property. I didn't lose anything when I filed my bankruptcy. Like I said, most Upsolve users don't either, and our bankruptcy tool helps you with the exemption process. So you file, you meet with the trustee at something called a 341 meeting of creditors, which typically happens anywhere from like 1 to 3 months after you file. Sounds scary, meeting of the creditors, but it's really not. It's basically a straightforward Q&A about your finances. Most Upsolve users tell me, that's it. Why was I even worried about this? If everything goes smoothly, which it often or usually does, did for me. I remember I went to court this day. I was wearing like a suit. I was in Texas. It was 1,000,000 degrees. And I was sweating bullets. And afterward, I realized, like, what was I worried about? That guy was super nice. Over quickly, not a problem. Usually that goes that way for Upsolve users. So if it does go successfully, which will help you with, you'll get a debt discharge notice about 60 to 90 days after the 341 meeting. And that is your official fresh start moment. It felt so good. I remember thinking like, oh my God, the sun is shining again. This debt is off my shoulders. I can move on with my life. And I immediately went and actually, like, I think I bought a Starbucks or something that I felt like I couldn't afford for a while. Like, I think I got like a burger or something that felt out of reach when all my money was going to pay off my debts. And it was so, so good. I finally felt free. Okay, so that is after the process, but really honestly, like, that's enough for me. We talked about the Upsolve tool. You can see it at upsolve.org. We talked about keeping your car, which is something I was concerned about, and some other common questions. And I want to open up the chat now for anybody else's questions, some Q&A. Let me see if I can get this open here. All right, yeah, any questions, feel free, throw them in the chat. I will answer them as they come up. And I have some other questions that have been submitted ahead of time that I went ahead and answered. So I will run through these questions now as I wait for your questions in the chat. So look forward to seeing them there. Question 1, will bankruptcy ruin my credit forever? Wow. I remember worrying about this, and you know what? I hear this fear all the time, and I get it. Here's the reality. It will impact your credit score at first, but it's not a life sentence. You can think of it like this. Many Upsolve users actually start seeing their credit scores improve within a year after filing. Well, why would that be? Because they're finally free from the crushing debt payments and can start building healthy financial habits. I mean, like, think about it, right? You often, if you're in enough debt that you want to file bankruptcy, you're often not making your payments on time, which is probably dropping your credit score down. And so as soon as your debt goes away, you stop having that negative effect and your credit score will rise. I've seen people get back to good credit scores within just a few years by making smart choices like paying their bills on time and using secured credit cards responsibly. Next question, can I keep my house or car if I file? This is such an important question, and I remember losing sleep over it myself. The good news is that in many cases, yes, you can keep your house and car. Now, houses are a little bit more complicated, so if you have a house, Upsolve's free tool would likely not be a good fit for you. But don't worry, we'll help you figure that out during the beginning process of our tool. And if you do have a house that you need to keep, we can refer you out to a trusted attorney partner for a free bankruptcy evaluation, and they can help walk through how they might be able to do that with you. Car is a little bit different. We can help you with that most times in our bankruptcy process. We talked about exemptions already as relates to houses and cars. There's usually some parts in the state and federal exemptions that will cover all or the majority of the value of those pieces of property. And it depends on where you live, but you'd be surprised at what you can protect through this process. Okay, how long does the bankruptcy process take? Let's be real here. You want to know when you can get a fresh start, right? You are hoping that this doesn't go on forever, and typically it doesn't. It never goes on forever, but typically it doesn't take very long. So usually from the moment that you file until the moment that your debt's discharged, we're looking at about 4 to 6 months. It took about 6 for me. My process was a little more complicated because I did something called reaffirming my car loan because I needed to keep my car to keep driving for Lyft and Uber. And that reaffirmation process involved me going to court and arguing to the judge, like, this is why I need my car. Not super scary. We have resources on how to do this at Upsolve, but that made my process take a little bit longer. So 4 to 6 months or so. Might sound like a while, but remember, you're talking about resolving years of financial challenges relatively quickly with bankruptcy. Okay, we're getting questions in here. I was already going to file bankruptcy, but then I recently got in an accident and totaled my car. I still owe about $11,000 on the car. My insurance is only paying me about $7,500. Oh man, really sorry to hear that, Jamie. That sounds super stressful. So can I claim the $7,500 that you're getting? You owe $11,000, but you're only getting, okay, so this is going to be a, I'm blanking on the term for this, but it's, you basically have a deficiency in it. You're going to get less from the insurance than the car costs. So this is essentially a debt. It's a debt of the difference between those two prices. So $11,000 and $3,500. So it'd be $3,500 of debt. And depending upon how this process goes, it may no longer be a secured debt and might be able to be wiped out during the bankruptcy process. Again, can't tell you that for sure. I would suggest going through the bankruptcy process on Upsolve's website. You can ask that question in our chat. Our paralegals can take a look at it. But typically, if the car is gone, if the car is surrendered, which it usually is in this instance, you just have a $3,500 unsecured debt. And without there being like a judgment in court against you, that $3,500 should be dischargeable as an unsecured debt in Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Hope that helps, Jamie. Okay. Question from Luke on here on behalf of a friend. You are a good friend, my man. Okay. He has $100,000 of private student loan debt, but no other debt. Can Upsolve help him file bankruptcy for this? If not, are there any other resources available? Great question. So our bankruptcy screener has some questions at the beginning to help you determine if student loans can be discharged in bankruptcy, because sometimes they actually can. Wasn't the case when I went through bankruptcy. I wish it had been. Wasn't the case though. And it has since become possible to discharge some types of student loans through bankruptcy. And the Upsolve tool will help you figure out if that is the case for your friend. Usually it's based on the age of the loans, the age of the person, and some other considerations like, did the school close? Like, did not having the degree like cause an issue for them down the road? Like, did they were they lied to in the administration process? Are they permanently disabled such that they can't work in their field? Things like that. And our tool will ask those questions so that your friend can determine if they're eligible to have that discharged. Generally speaking, if you don't qualify based on those like general categories that I mentioned, it can be hard. We do have some people that we know who do student loan discharges, some lawyers that I'd be happy to connect you with. If you shoot an email to breakfree, which is our podcast, I didn't mention this earlier, breakfree@upsolve.org, I can hopefully make a connection for your friend. So thanks for your question, Luke. Okay, any other questions in the chat? Feel free, anything you want to know at all. It can be personal, it can be general. Okay, I'm going to just throw out some additional answers as we go. I'm going to add some additional time onto the stream since I was rambling on here to myself for the first 15 minutes. So sorry about that, everybody. Okay, how much does filing bankruptcy cost? So Upsolve is free. We provide free support through the process, but there are filing fees. There's a court filing fee of $338 for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. But this is important. If you're struggling financially, you might qualify for a fee waiver. We've seen many Upsolve users successfully get these fee waivers when they need them. Okay, another question. What debts can I discharge in Chapter 7 bankruptcy? Most unsecured debts. So what is an unsecured debt? You can think about things like credit cards, medical bills, personal loans. These can typically be wiped clean. But to be upfront, some debts like certain types of student loans, back on that question there, Luke, cannot be discharged. Most taxes can't be, and things like child support also stick around. Anything that is secured, so something secured by property that isn't covered by exemptions, is not going to be wiped out in bankruptcy. So you can think about this kind of like sorting your laundry. Some things just need to be handled differently, so you might have to handle them outside of bankruptcy. You can handle some through something like Chapter 13. You can handle some through debt management or negotiated settlements or repayments, but not through Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Okay, another question. We have to file our 2023 taxes prior to filing. So yes, you do need to have your taxes for, I believe it's the 3 years prior to the current year filed. Our screener will take you through this and tell you for sure in order to file bankruptcy. So great question there. Will bankruptcy stop wage garnishment and collection calls? Yes. And let me tell you, watching those collection calls stop immediately was one of the most relieving moments of my bankruptcy experience. I had people calling me all hours of the day, dinner time, whatever. And by law, the vast majority of them have to stop as soon as you file bankruptcy and get what's called an automatic stay. So great question. It's a force field around your finances, that automatic stay, and also your time. People can't call you. Okay, any more questions? I'll take as many as pop up here. I'm going to stay on the stream until 7:15 Eastern. Can bankruptcy help me with medical debt? Absolutely. Medical debt is actually one of the most common reasons that people come to Upsolve. So those bills can be completely discharged, giving you the breathing room that you need to focus on your health instead of on your wallet. What's the cost of using Upsolve compared to hiring a lawyer? Well, that's easy, and here's something I'm really proud of. Upsolve is completely free. Compare that to bankruptcy lawyers who charge anywhere between like $1,500 and $3,000 for Chapter 7 filing. I personally, when I was going through my debt challenges, I had a lawyer quote me, it was $2,000 for a Chapter 13 filing, which I couldn't really afford anyway. I couldn't afford the $2,000, much less like repaying through Chapter 13. So not a good option for me. And most people charge, $3,000 to get out of debt entirely, or $1,500 to $3,000 through Chapter 7. Upsolve is completely free. Great question from Del Real Law. I love it when we have legal professionals or lawyers on here, I'm assuming. Does the final page affidavit need to be notarized? So I'm not sure what affidavit you're referring to. Typically, what our users need to do is just sign the forms, and we tell them where to sign on the forms, and then take that to the court clerk, who will stamp everything accordingly. So if you're referring to some other form that needs to be notarized beyond that, that's not something I'm familiar with, but I'm happy to get back to you if you clarify in the chat. Okay. Jamie, hey, I love when people share embarrassing things. There's nothing embarrassing about debt. We all have it. It's a challenge. It's really hard living in America sometimes, honestly, isn't it? Right? Like, it's just so easy to get in debt and so hard to get out. So don't be embarrassed. Thank you for sharing it. I really appreciate it. So Chase is trying to take you to court for the debt. It's about $12,000. Will bankruptcy void this court case? That is a great question. So it kind of depends on whether or not they've already sued you and how far along that lawsuit is. If there isn't a court order already entered in this case, then usually filing bankruptcy will allow you to end that lawsuit, or at least delay that lawsuit, and move on, hopefully with a clean slate, after which the lawsuit will kind of just go away. It does really depend, though, as I said, on the phase of the lawsuit. If there's already been an order entered, sometimes you can get it what's called vacated by a skilled attorney. However, it's not something that Upsolve would be able to help with in that instance, but we can definitely refer you out to a trusted partner. And actually, I'll link this here, but we work with often and really love Solo, the Star Wars movie. That's not what we're looking for. A company formerly called Solo Suit, now called Solo, who provides debt lawsuit support and settlement in lawsuits. But generally speaking, just to answer your initial question, as long as the case isn't over and a judgment isn't entered, bankruptcy will stop those legal proceedings. Thanks for asking that question. Okay, any other questions in the chat? I will move on. Del Real, I don't know if I answered your question or not. I want to make sure I understood what you were talking about the affidavit. Okay, how long does it take to complete forms using Upsolve? So most of our users finish their forms in under 2 hours. Now think about that, like 2 hours to start changing your financial future. That's less time than it takes to watch a couple of movies. I don't know, how long are movies even anymore? I feel like movies are like 600 hours long now, so it's less time than it takes to watch one movie. What if I get stuck while filling out my forms? You're never alone in the process if you work with Upsolve. We've built in guidance throughout the platform, and our support team is there to help you when you need it. It's like having a knowledgeable friend walking alongside of you, right? Or like, I wish that I'd had this. Like, I needed somebody who was a friend, somebody who was an expert that I could talk to during the process when I had questions. Upsolve can provide that to you through our online tool. Do I need to go to court after filing with Upsolve? Also a great question. Sometimes no, and just let me hedge this. So our instructions walk you through filing in person, and then typically you'll need to go in person to that 341 meeting of the creditors. And if you're doing a reaffirmation agreement where you need to go into court and argue in front of the judge as to why you need to keep your car loan, for example, usually you'll have to go to court for that, like I did. Now, depending upon where you live, some courts do all of this through Zoom and actually allow you to send in your forms through something called e-filing or mail them. So it depends. You don't always have to go to court, but you do have to do subsequent things, attend subsequent meetings, but often those meetings are over Zoom calls. What makes Upsolve different from traditional legal services? So apart from being free, we've designed our tools to feel like a friendly guide rather than a confusing legal process. I like to say that we speak human, not legalese, and we're here to help you understand every step of the journey. And emphasize again, totally free. Will everybody know if I file for bankruptcy? I was actually really worried about this too when I filed. So bankruptcy is technically a public record. But the reality is that unless somebody specifically was searching through the public records, they're not going to find out. Your employer doesn't get notified and it won't show up in your Google search of your name. I remember being so relieved when I learned this. It helped me focus on what really mattered, which was getting my fresh start. How long does bankruptcy stay on my credit report? So Chapter 7 bankruptcy stays on your credit report for 10 years. But here's what nobody told me. Your credit score can start improving right after bankruptcy. Mine did. So within 2 years, I was able to get a secured credit card, and within it was faster than 2 years. I think I got one within 3 months. So yeah, I was back to about normal credit card rates at about the 2-year mark, and then got a car loan at the 3-year mark, and actually just bought a house. So the house that you see me in here, I was able to get a mortgage at a great rate. Let's see, this would have been 8 years after filing bankruptcy. So you can definitely still get back to the American dream once you get rid of that debt and move on with your financial future. Okay, let's see if we got any other questions in the chat here. No more, so I'll go through some of the other ones that I've gotten ahead of time. Can I keep my car if I file? We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I want to reiterate, like, I was really worried about this when I filed because my job was driving for Lyft and Uber. And you can't drive for Lyft and Uber if you don't have a car. So in most cases, yes, you can keep your car in bankruptcy, especially if you need it for work. There are exemptions specifically designed to protect the property you need for your livelihood. And also you can do something called reaffirmation in many instances, which is what I did, which is basically saying, hey, I'm willing to keep making my current car payments on this loan after my bankruptcy. Will you approve me to do that so that I can keep this? And that's a process that we'll help walk you through in the Upsolve tool if you work with us. Okay, so Luke, I see Del Rill, pro se affidavit to accompany petition for order of relief form in Upsolve packet. Great question. So there is the pro se affidavit. So you don't need to get that notarized. No, this is a form that we include with our packets that basically tells the court clerk, hey, this is a form prepared by Upsolve. Here's what Upsolve is. This person is, using forms they created through the Upsolve tool. Doesn't need to be notarized. If it says otherwise, Del Rill, please shoot me a message. I want to make sure that's not in there, but you should not need to get that notarized. Okay, will this video be reposted on Upsolve's YouTube channel? Yes, I've got somebody else on here answering questions. Thanks for whoever that was. Yes, we will repost it on our channel afterwards. And I should mention, if you're more interested in learning more about bankruptcy, on our YouTube page, I won't pull up YouTube right now because who the heck knows. Actually, let me do it over here. If you go to our YouTube channel, we have all sorts of videos about all sorts of different questions. Basically, what we typically have done is we look through the most commonly asked questions that we get from our users, and then we create videos answering those. So I actually have a daily podcast, 3 times weekly podcast, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that goes up answering common questions. You can see those here. We also have lots and lots of videos that we've put up over the years about these various questions. So take a look at those. These webinars will run every Monday night at 7 p.m. So you'll have chances to ask your questions there in the future if you don't get to now. And then you'll be able to find these webinars here live on our page. Great question, Jamie. Thanks for that. Okay, I'll take a couple more questions here. Any other questions? What happens to my retirement accounts when I file bankruptcy? Okay, here's the good news. Most retirement accounts are completely protected in bankruptcy. I remember being so relieved learning that my small 401k, which was the only money that I had really, was going to be safe in the bankruptcy process. The law recognizes the importance of preserving your future financial security, and so it's usually protected in the bankruptcy process. All right, last question here. Will I ever be able to rent an apartment again? This one hits close to home because I was also worried about this. I rented an apartment, I believe, 2 months after I filed bankruptcy. So yes, you absolutely can rent after bankruptcy like I did. Some landlords might require a larger security deposit initially, or they might want you to have a co-signer, but many are more concerned with your current income and whether you can pay rent going forward than they are about your past bankruptcy. So if that's a concern for you, it definitely can be possible. Okay, well, thanks everybody for your questions. Thanks for joining. Sorry again that it took me 15 minutes to realize I was talking into the void. I know this now for next time. As we wrap up, I want to tell you something really important that I want to leave you with. Taking control of your financial future isn't just about the legal process. It's about giving yourself permission to start fresh. So whether you're watching this from your couch, your office, or maybe even your kitchen table like I was years ago, remember that you're not alone in this journey. The team at Upsolve is here to support you every step of the way. Thank you all for spending this time with me tonight. If you're ready to explore your options, our website is open 24/7 at upsolve.org, and we're here to help you take the first step towards financial freedom. Don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. We're all in this together. Thank you so much, and I will see you again next Monday.